Yo, today's Monday, October 11th, and this is number 20 of this little series. So I've realized that I was looking back at my videos that I've put out, and they are very focused on one particular line of ideas, I think. And it wouldn't be hard to look back and make the argument that I'm a right-winger. And I wanted to talk about that today. What am I? Maybe that's a way I could start. I'm a liberal. I believe in liberal values, liberalism. Does that make me a right-winger? I believe in equality under the law. I think that classic image of justice, being blindfolded, that to me represents liberalism. That's how justice should be, is blind. It shouldn't matter who you are. When you're inside that courtroom, you're just a human being. That's it. These people on the extreme left who consider themselves social justice warriors don't believe in that anymore. They believe that justice should take off her blindfold and that justice should look at who you are and be like, oh, this is a black person? I should treat this person differently. Oh, this is a white person? Oh, they have white privilege, and that should be part of my judicial process. That is not liberal. So I believe we should reclaim the word liberalism, the word liberal. This way that we use it currently, where liberal is kind of synonymous with Democrat or synonymous with like left wing or blue team, is wrong. We need to reclaim that word. It's amazing to me that if I look around at politics today, it seems like the ones who are the conservatives are conserving liberalism. So, and they keep using liberal to refer to the other team when truly they're the liberal ones. And so I'm only conservative in the sense that I would like to conserve liberalism. If that makes me a right-winger in your mind, then I guess whatever. I don't consider myself a right-winger because I believe we need radical change. I'm not conservative about our governance structure. I think that our government should change radically, very radically. I have wild ideas that I'm going to talk about on this channel. I think we should have UBI. That's number one. I've believed that since probably when I was a teenager. Probably before that, when I was like 10 years old. I used to get this magazine, Discover Magazine. I was a nerdy kid. It's a science magazine, and I'd read that, and that's where I first heard about some sort of guaranteed income. It just seems like an inevitable thing to me. We're going to need it no matter what with coming technological changes. So it was really exciting when Andrew Yang popped up, because I'm like, wow, this guy. I always thought UBI was just an impossible dream, or it was just decades and decades away. And then I heard Elon Musk say it first. He's the first person I heard mention it and say, yeah, it's inevitable. And then Andrew Yang comes on the scene, and he kind of had a real life plan that was actually possible. And it occurred to me that we should have it right now. We should have done UBI in the 1970s, in my opinion. But so what I just said, does that make me right wing still? Does a right winger want universal basic income? I don't know. Probably not. Not the way I see it. So when you're looking at my channel and you're seeing this list of things, and it's me complaining about, it's me just talking about a lot of things where I think you could very easily make the argument that I'm a right winger, but I don't think that that's true. I don't think that's true. The only thing that I want to conserve is liberal values. I want equality under the law. I don't think that there should be anything in the rule book that says anything about white or black or gay or straight. It's funny, if you go look up liberalism on Wikipedia, there's a list. So there's one sentence, and it says that people who believe in liberalism, believe in equality under the law, consent of the governed, and there's a third one. I don't remember it right now. I should remember it. But then the second and third sentence are just a list of things that liberals tend to believe in. And one of them is a free market, and one of them is capitalism. You can't really have a true capitalist society without having a liberal society. And you read it and you're like, what? Because if you grow up in this country, liberal just kind of means these left-wingers. And I think the left-wingers have gone past liberalism. A lot of what they speak about now, these soft-headed, these students that are just squishy-headed students that went to a university. You know, I'm not making fun. I went to a university. I went to UC Davis. I graduated from UC Davis with a degree in biotech. I focused on bioinformatics, comp sci, and genetics. You know, I took some of these classes. I took a sociology class where we talked about social justice. Like, I don't know how I made it through the gauntlet without coming out with blue, with blue hair dye. I mean, I did to some extent become far more left wing when I went to college. I was exposed to all of that, and you're kind of surrounded by all these people, and it just makes sense. I don't know what happened to me afterwards. I think having a job and having to pay rent and things kind of just makes you more conservative in a weird way, which is so interesting, right? But what was I talking about? Some of these students come out and they're just indistinguishable from Marxists. You can just read, you know, I read the Communist Manifesto probably about 6 or 7 months ago, and I've read a lot about, I mean, just go to the Wikipedia page on Marxism and then compare that to some of the doctrines of the most intense social justice warriors, and it's hard to distinguish between the two. It really is. It really is. So they're not liberal. A lot of these social justice warriors, they're in the liberal party. They'll call themselves liberal. The right-wingers will call them liberal, but they're not liberal. So we need to reclaim this word. We need to take back liberalism. The liberals on the right and the left need to reclaim that word. And we need to stop misusing it, because it's probably one of the reasons that we're going so wild as a country right now, is that we are misusing our words, which I've talked about in my transgender video. I believe... What is that? Look at this. Alright, I can't... What am I doing? You know, I never have a plan for these videos. I just turn the camera on. I don't even have a title. The titling these videos has been the hardest thing, because I was just going to put numbers up originally. I was just going to number them, but I realized it's really boring, and it just makes it impossible to distinguish between videos, so I thought I would title them. But it's really hard to come up with a title when it's just me. It's just hard to come up with a title. I think I'm going to title this one Reclaiming Liberalism. We need to bring this country back in line with the original values. I know that the people on the wild left are going to tell you that it was built on racism, it was built on white supremacy, which is wrong. It's just straight up wrong. The original founding fathers, they were going to put a rule in the Constitution that banned slavery like that day, and they ended up not being able to do that. And then if you think about it, the only reason that we've been able to achieve what we've achieved so far, the reason that the feminist movement could happen, the reason that the LGBT movement could happen, the reason that civil rights could happen, all of that stuff the people today are telling you that it's contradictory to what the initial founders wanted, but it's actually exactly in line with what they wanted. They built a system in which social justice could occur. They built the system where we could eventually bring in equal rights to everybody. Like, do you think you're going to have a feminist movement where the Taliban's hanging out? No. You get it through liberalism. You truly get it through feminism cannot happen without liberalism. the end of racism can't happen without liberalism. And these LGBTQ rights, whatever that means anymore, I don't know what rights they don't have. I dated a girl for a little while, and this is a few months ago, and we're having a little argument over text, and she goes, "Don't you support LGBT rights?" Like, what rights don't they have? What rights do they not have? What does that mean? They have all the same rights I have. You know, I get that marriage was the thing. I can't go off this. I can't go. Stay on track. Conserving liberalism. That's what we need to do. That's the only sense in which I'm a conservative. I think we should keep the values of the Constitution, but sort of reset it in a way. That's another idea I have, is if you think about the Constitution like a tree that we planted initially, it had an initial structure with the 3 branches, and ever since then, for 250 years, we've just been building structures around it. There's so many things built on top of it and around it in proximity to it that our government structure, technically, if you think about government, if you define government as that which governs, then our government is so wildly complex, and I think so far from the initial structure, that we sort of need to take the tree and we need to shake it really hard. Shake the tree, get all the crap off of it, and kind of reset it and replace some of those structures with technological structures that have fewer people. And just, there's so many ways that we could implement technological solutions today that we just aren't doing because our government's filled with old people. And that's why I'm so excited about Yang, is because he represents, to me, he represents the kind of change that I would want. Like, the vein of ideas that he talks about is the vein of ideas that we click. You know, I click with that guy. Like, if you look at the 2020 election, millions and millions, tens of millions of people in this country don't trust those results. And the people on the left are saying those people are conspiracy theorists and terrorists, and which, what we need is a voting system that everybody trusts. And to me, the answer to that is a technological solution. It really, if we can do banking online, why can't we do voting online? We trust websites with our most private information in some of these cases, our most sensitive information, banking information. It shouldn't be that hard to make a website that Americans can log on to. And then we get into voting ID and all this issue, all this stuff, but it's possible to solve these problems. With technology. And it's funny to me that people on the right wing will call people on the left wing liberals, and they truly, some of the right wingers are the more liberal ones at this point. If you look at the definition of liberalism, I think everybody should look at that and just reframe that word to line up with the Wikipedia definition, truly. That would solve a lot of problems if we just use that word correctly. I think it would solve a ton of problems, because then we could point at people who claim to be liberal and be like, no, you're not liberal. Screw you. The rule you're trying to make does not treat everybody equally. So that's really it. Just treat people equally. We need to do that. And social justice warriors don't want to do that. They think that, they look at my face and they think that the rules should apply to me differently than somebody else. I would call that racist, but you can't be racist against white people, right? I've been told that before. White people cannot experience racism. I've seen tweets that say, some pretty awful things about white people. Some pretty disgusting things. And I would call that illiberal. And I would also call it racist, but I think racism and liberalism are two mutually exclusive categories. Because liberalism implies that everybody's equal, and that implies that all the races are equal, or should be treated equally at the very least. And racism would do the opposite of that. It would treat one race differently than it would than another one. And if you think about it, these people, these social justice warriors, are so racist. The way that they want to treat the races differently. They're implementing segregation. They're like a new kind of racist. And this makes me, I've gotten in these arguments with these people, and they tell me that, I mean, it's always the same thing. I'm going over the same ground I've already covered. They just have these really simple intellectual buzzsaw kind of arguments where it's just a really simple argument, but you've never really heard it before, or they redefine words, or they pull these weird tricks on you, these like Mott and Bailey tricks where they define a word one way, get you to admit like, all right, and then they use the other definition of the word in the rest of the conversation. They do that constantly. Like there's almost no way to beat them because they're just playing a game that makes no sense. And they get trained in these universities. They get trained in this stuff, in this weird sort of kung fu. And they've gained a lot of power because of it. They've worked their way into a lot of our institutions. I hope this channel doesn't get banned. I really hope so. I want to keep doing this. I enjoy talking about this stuff. And I'm not going to talk about political issues the whole time. I want to make a video about all sorts of wild, unrelated ideas, all sorts of crazy things. Okay, bye.